3 minutes.
3 minutes to launch.
Securing LO2 topping.
Pressurizing Atlas tanks.
Topping of liquid oxygen in the Atlas has now completed, and Atlas propellant tanks are pressurized for flight.
Hola, ¿qué tal amigos? Aquí viendo el lanzamiento de Starliner, que están haciendo un lanzamiento, un test de lanzamiento. ¿Por qué es llamativo esto? Porque en anteriores lanzamientos pues han fracasado lamentablemente, ha salido con muchos problemas y ahora no sé cómo cápsula, si hoy realmente va a ser que van a tener el éxito que están esperando o va a ser otro fracaso, no lo sabemos, pero a ver qué va a pasar. Esta cápsula está hecha por la compañía Boeing, que se supone que debió haber estado listo hace mucho tiempo. Hasta ahora, nada de nada. Quedaron muy rezagados.
150.
Securing Centaur LH2.
Con SpaceX, ¿no?
Securing Centaur LO2.
Lleva muy adelante.
Centaur hydrogen and oxygen are now at flight level, and topping is being terminated.
140.
Launch enabled.
137.
At DSR.
A ver.
120.
OC is armed.
SES count started. EDS ascent.
La cápsula está usando un cohete de la ULA, United Launch Alliance.
EDS armed and ready means the emergency detection system is now armed.
1
and
minute.
that basically just means
Rob,
that if
report
it
range
detects
status.
something, it will
Range
trigger the
green.
launch abort system on Starliner and fire
54.
automatically. The
PLP
spacecraft
started.
would push itself far up and away from the rocket. We're talking a mile up and a mile out in just a matter of seconds. We certainly don't expect to see that today.
40.
Atlas at flight press.
30.
30 seconds.
Centaur at flight press.
Vehicles now pressurized for flight.
25. Status check.
So
Atlas. Go Centaur. Go Starliner.
All systems are go for liftoff.
Go Starliner.
Y que seguramente los tienen como que
10, 9, 8,
ocupados, ¿no?
7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
Ahora,
2, 1, and liftoff. Starliner is headed back to space on the shoulders of Atlas, powered by a workforce dedicated to its success.
We have confirmation of a good MET epic timer on Starliner.
Atlas executed its roll program.
Already ready is now throttling down to maintain
crew in a
acceptable
heads-up
dynamic
position
pressure
to
on
head
the
crew on
vehicle.
board today.
This is the first planned throttle down for Atlas in preparation for max Q.
Max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle.
Después de esos problemas que tenemos,
Right now, atmospheric forces are the highest Starliner Atlas will face during the uphill climb.
parte de lo que es la industria aeroespacial tampoco les ha estado.
Mach 1, Atlas 5 and Starliner are now supersonic.
Esto yo creo que va a ser
Vehicle now throttling up.
Up next in about 20 seconds, Starliner's 2 solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn out.
And we have burnout on both SRBs.
Good crew module forward link connection.
Already ready is throttling back up to full thrust.
Oye, había sido sólido el cohete ese.
Now that we pass the solid rocket booster burnout, you'll soon see those 2 solid rocket boosters separate from the vehicle.
O sea que no utiliza como SpaceX en su Falcon 9, utiliza oxígeno líquido, hidrógeno líquido, si no me equivoco. Pero este utiliza, creo, es como una masa.
Atlas V now weighs just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of 2,800 pounds per second.
Ahí a lo mejor está seco, más seco, pero es sólido, no es líquido. Ahí está.
And we have indication of SRB jettison.
O sea, la cosa es que tiene que funcionar.
Atlas continues to ascend using solely the RD-180 engine. That's about 850,000 pounds of thrust at sea level.
Tiene que funcionar bien, se tiene que poner en órbita, tiene que hacer todo el proceso automáticamente.
RD-180 is throttling down slightly as expected. Engine response looks good.
De los controladores, lo tiene que hacer solo.
Teams here on the ground confirming Starliner has a good trajectory. We're now 2 minutes and 55 seconds into today's flight, flying at an altitude of 56 kilometers.
Y en eso, en la última misión, en eso es que han fallado, porque parece que hubo un problema con el software, no sé qué pasó, pero
Our next throttle down will be to control acceleration forces, limit forces on the crew to below 4 Gs. That is safe for an extended period of time.
One minute remaining in this burn. 1 minute to BECO. RD-180 is now throttling to maintain 3.5 G acceleration on the vehicle.
Starliner flying off the east coast at this point at altitude of 80 kilometers now, moving at a rate of 1,187 miles per hour.
It's just passing North Carolina, Virginia, off the northeastern seaboard. For those of you watching along the coastline, you might be able to see this launch.
O sea, esa creo que sería la... Bueno, es lógico que uno, o al menos creo que eso puede suceder porque es una empresa privada. Boeing.
And we have BECO, booster engine cutoff. We have successful staging. Pre-start on the RL-10s.
Es un poco raro esto, pero no es como SpaceX, ¿no?
We have ignition on both RL-10s.
Ronco porque estoy medio resfriado.
Centaur's now gone to closed-loop steering.
Just passed through several milestones. Teams here on the ground reporting that all are looking good. Ascent cover jettison there. That provided that aerodynamic structure to the top of Starliner, protected the docking equipment during ascent.
And now that Starliner and Centaur are free of the atmosphere, well into the vacuum of space, that aeroskirt has been jettisoned.
Main engine cut off. Ya, eso es. Eso es, ¿no? Debe ser la estación. Después que se apague, se tiene que separar y ahí es donde debe funcionar la cápsula, ¿no? Supongo que si todo va bien, yo creo que ya van a estar aptos.
Now 6 minutes into today's launch, Starliner continuing to accelerate up the North American coast. Everything going smoothly so far. Starliner and Centaur have been taking through their ascent milestones right on track, including the booster stage separation, Centaur ignition, and aeroskirt jettison. A number of status calls we'll be listening for in the next several minutes, but if all continues to go well, the next major milestone to watch out for is the main engine cutoff, when Starliner will be officially in space.
O sea, de funcionar, digo, SpaceX de Elon Musk ya tendría competencia, ¿no? A eso es a lo que queríamos llegar, si es que funciona.
We heard a report from ULA's team. We had a little bit of an overperformance on the booster, but the That's a good thing. Centaur is more than capable of adjusting on the fly in its closed-loop performance.
Dice que el cohete ha tenido algunas fallitas.
Centaur pressures are stable.
Pero que no
Centaur looks good.
Bueno, ya estamos escuchando problemas. No sé.
Flight control teams are also monitoring the performance of the sublimator on Starliner right now. The sublimator is what is used to control cabin temperatures going up to space and coming home. Normally we use the radiators on the service module, but those are not powered up until we get into orbit.
Pero bueno, a pesar de eso, creo que la misión no está comprometida. Pero, a ver, todavía no está en órbita, dice. O sea, a la velocidad que debe ir, ¿no?
We heard confirmation that St. John's abort zone is open. We pre-select these splashdown zones in the case of any needed aborts. The first one would be off the coast of St. John's, Nova Scotia. We just heard the flight dynamics officer report everything is pretty good.
Ok, dice que todo está bien.
Flight controllers here in Mission Control confirming that our main engine cutoff time is looking stable. It is going to be 11 minutes and 50 seconds into the flight. We are now 8 minutes and 50 seconds in, so that's still about 3 minutes to go until we hit that milestone.
Eso va a tomar un poquito de tiempo, ¿eh? Dentro de 10 minutos. Es que no es muy claro su ¿cómo se puede decir esto? Secuencia de sucesos. Es un poco muy extraño. De hecho, se quedó en Centaur Ignition. Creo que por cada suceso que pasa y recién ahí se acomoda. Bueno, es como de SpaceX que va así. Bien.
Now, one of the next calls that we will hear is that the Shannon abort zone will be open. Now, you can see on your screens that Starliner is making its way up the North American coast, just starting to go into the Atlantic Ocean, northern Atlantic Ocean. We pre-plan our flight trajectories, so we would not abort a crew into the middle of the ocean. They'd be near enough to land for quick and speedy recovery. So we're still in that St. John's abort zone. Expect to hear that Shannon open call coming.
And we just heard that call. Shannon now open, so Starliner could potentially make that abort landing off the coast of Ireland now if needed, but so far no reason to think it will be. Starliner currently 153 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and that's about 95 miles.
United Launch Alliance.
60 seconds to Miko.
Main engine cut off. Dentro de 50 minutos. O sea, se va a separar ese.
We are 11 minutes into today's flight. Centaur and Starliner are passing Mach 23. Mach 23.3 and counting. Altitude of just under 150 kilometers.
Ahí está. A ver.
Miko's main engine cutoff when both of the dual engine Centaur RL-10s are scheduled to shut down. That again is coming up at 11 minutes and 50 seconds. About 5 seconds away now.
And we have Miko 1. Centaur engines have cut off. RCS is now at
Main engine
100%
cut
for
off,
SL.
right on time. Starliner is in space, but not done with the ascent milestones. Hearing in the room that it was a good main engine cut off. The next milestone that we'll be looking for is launch vehicle separation, when Starliner will separate from Centaur booster and fly on its own. Even after that happens, we'll have about 15 minutes until our final major milestone in today's ascent, the orbital insertion burn that will raise the perigee, or low point of Starliner's orbit, out of the Earth's atmosphere. So stick with us. We're not done yet. Now 12 minutes and 30 seconds into today's flight.
Space main engine cut off. Spacecraft separation.
We just heard our Atlas console position report a spacecraft separation for 1450 after launch.
Still about 2 minutes away.
Now, right now, ULA teams are confirming that Centaur is in a good configuration for separation, making sure that all of the pressures in the tanks are stable, and it will be able to conduct a proper disposal burn later.
Dentro de 2 minutos es que se va a separar ese cohete.
Flight control teams here in the room are moving to their insertion checklists.
Vamos a ver qué va a pasar, ¿no? Porque insisto, de funcionar todo bien, yo creo que va a ser un paso muy importante para Boeing. Porque no sé, pero no sé si va a tener la misma performance que tiene SpaceX de Elon Musk, pero
60 seconds to spacecraft set. Centaur has now achieved its separation attitude.
necesariamente tener que ser así.
Just under a minute now to go until the launch vehicle separation. The team here on the ground reporting that Starliner and Centaur are both ready for it, in the right orientation and on a stable trajectory.
O sea, se peleen con SpaceX, ¿no? En la carrera espacial y llevar astronautas para la NASA, llevar astronautas privados, inclusive
30 seconds to Starliner separation.
turistas, quién sabe, ¿no? Pero como vamos viendo la cosa, SpaceX está muchísimo más adelantado, eso sí. Le ha llevado una ventaja brutal.
Centaur is holding attitude for Starliner separation.
Y eso que SpaceX
10 seconds to separation.
nueva a comparación de Boeing, que tiene un historial en este rubro, inclusive creo que
And we have confirmation of Starliner separation.
de los programas Apolo, ¿no? Creo que sí, o sea, ellos deberían estar.
And Starliner is flying alone on its way to orbit.
Ahí está, ya se separó.
Confirm good LV separation. Thanks ULA for a smooth ride to space, and thank you, Dylan, for your help on that ascent commentary.
Supongo que está saliendo bien, ¿no? Porque no han dicho nada.
With that milestone behind us, the next one we'll be watching for is that orbital insertion burn. That is going to raise the perigee, or the low point of Starliner's orbit, out of the Earth's atmosphere, putting it in space for its full orbit. That's an important milestone to reach. It's going to be a 45-second burn. It'll change Starliner's velocity about 85 meters per second, or 190 miles per hour. And that's going to be coming up at the 31-minute mark in today's orbit. We're now just under 16 minutes into today's flight, so still about 15 minutes to go for that.
So there's a number of things that flight controllers are working on right now. They're transitioning Starliner from its launch mode over to its orbit mode. That includes powering up things like antennas, heaters, and those radiators that I mentioned earlier.
Bueno, van a hacer un paso de vuelo a vuelo orbital, dice que van a hacer.
We have good targeting for orbital insertion, a good forward command link, and a good MET epoch timer.
Pero bueno. Y que de aquí
Starliner making its way over the North Atlantic.
está para largo. Obviamente
Some other things going on right now. They are powering down some what's called demonstration flight instrumentation. We have some extra sensors on there for these demonstration flights. We have more of them on during power descent, but we don't need some of those right now, so flight controllers are powering some of those down. But some other things that are powering on include those propulsion line heaters. When in the vacuum of space and in the Earth's shadow, it gets quite cold, around negative 250 degrees, so we want to make sure those propulsion lines don't freeze. And the radiators are those little small silver discs you might be able to see on the side of the service module. If you remember your high school physics, the only way you can get rid of heat in a vacuum is through radiation. And so that sublimator will be powering down, and the radiators will be taking care of the heat management for the rest of the flight until we get ready to come home. Some things that you also might be seeing on your screen are some RCS jet activations. Those are just helping the target for that orbital insertion burn.
Okay, bueno. Sí, entre mañana y pasado mañana vamos a hacer
And at about
exactamente.
L plus 23, the team will transition Starliner into what's called fine pointing mode, or thrust align mode. So those jets that you see firing will hold a very specific attitude, which is exactly the attitude that we need for that orbital insertion burn, as Brandy mentioned earlier. We want that 85 meters per second of delta V to be going in exactly the right direction.
Qué vaina. Bueno, ok, bye muchachos.
And so the colors you're seeing on your screen, the